So thank you for joining us today on this. So we're going to be talking about smarter, faster, better, and driving growth of your brand. So what I wanted to start out with first is each of you could give an overview of your brand, kind of the store count, what your development schedule is for the next 2 years, and then what's your biggest focus that you are working on for your brand.
Awesome.
You want to start?
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Noveshen, founder and CEO of Starbird Chicken. Starbird is a positively delicious chicken brand based in San Francisco, California, just south of where we are today. I hope some of you have the opportunity to visit a Starbird restaurant in your travels. We currently have 16 restaurants, primarily traditional brick and mortar, although some non-traditional restaurants being stadiums, ghost kitchens, airports, and the like. Over the next 24 months, we will likely be opening somewhere between 10 to 15 restaurants, I would assume. Pretty big growth on a base of 16, as you can imagine. Primarily driven about 30 to 40% corporate-owned restaurants and the rest in franchising, which we just launched last year, and have several new partners in states like Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Washington. And so we've got an exciting growth step happening for the brand. Finally, in terms of focus, a lot of it just comes down to creating the best ROI that we can every single day. We have very high average unit volumes. We're very fortunate with that, over 4 million. And it's all about getting the return on investment to drive growth.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Davoyan, Chief Technology Officer for Dave's Hot Chicken. As of today, we're at 229 locations, and we're opening 1 this week. So we open on average 1 to 3 stores a week. By the end of the year, we'll open an additional 47. Some may transfer over to next year, but we typically do 100 stores a year. So we're going to do 200 stores in 24 months. That's sort of the store count that we're comfortable with from a growth perspective, to just keep the essence of the brand alive and to make sure that we're just transferring what the brand is for to all these different states and these different operators. We're fully franchised, mostly. We only have about 5 company stores that we use for, to test new things before we pass it on to our franchise group. So just a small population of store-owned restaurants. And what we focus on, not only from a technology perspective, from just every department, is really the guest experience, the food quality, and the convenience. So everything just kind of surrounding the guest and how they interact with our brand is our primary focus all the time.
Very good.
Fantastic. My name is Batty. I'm with Swig. I've been there a total of 10 weeks. So this was kind of thrown on me, but this is all good. I know I'm amongst friends here, so thank you very much. Currently the brand, we have 82 locations. It was founded in 2010 by Nicole Tanner, who's unfortunately cannot be here today. But we're going to finish out the year with about 105 locations. Next year we're planning on 50 to 70 locations. The following year, upwards of 100. We have corporate shops in 4 states, and we're franchised in another 12. So we have some great franchise partners. Back to your point, I mean, we're just concentrating on just serving good product and trying not to be on too many television shows like the ones that we were just on. But it actually did propel our brand quite a bit. And if you don't know what that is, you can ask me about that offline. But no, it's a pretty amazing company founded by an incredible lady, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Very good. So with all your growth and everything that you have going on in the restaurants, what is your biggest challenge that's keeping you up at night, that you cannot sleep and you dream about it?
Costs. That's probably the same across the board.
All right, coffee after dinner is my problem right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, listen, the price of real estate's expensive. The lack of a good deal, as well as just the cost to build right now is currently just the hardest on my end.
Okay.
So.
I mean, from a technology perspective, what keeps me up at night is something that you guys are probably not worried about, which is security, because with the growth of AI and bots and things like that, the security game is becoming really tough. But we share the same, across our franchise groups with building stores. We look at a lot of second gen stores. So we take, like, let's say an old KFC or an old Qdoba or whatever, right? And see how we can fit it into to make it a Dave's so that we save on costs. So something for you guys to consider, but don't compete with us on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, right now, I'm nothing really, I mean, I sleep soundly. I'm very grateful for that, to be honest with you. But nice beds here, nice host to this event, appreciate it. When I think about what is the biggest challenge is, it's really the pace of growth, right? Just to really think about it, and you watch, Dave's growth, I mean, astronomical, impressive, amazing, right? And that was the intention of the brand from day one. For us, when we started 8 years ago, we had a lot to figure out, right?
Yeah.
We were constantly tweaking. It's not a simple brand. It's not a one-trick pony, but it's a brand that we want to have open for 50 to 100 years. We don't want it to be just some passing thing. And that balance of speed, right? Going into franchising now and doubling the company in the next 24 months, that's a big deal. It could be 200% if we wanted, on top of that. But just finding that right balance, getting the wins and not ignoring the headwinds that we face.
Oh, okay. So this question is for Aaron and Daniel. As your brands, you're looking to minimize the schedule to kind of hit the goal of opening the quantity of stores per year. Where is that, those weeks, where are they being found in your development schedule where you can tighten that up?
Well, first we just got to get our act together, like every day, right? It's about being organized, being systematized, creating scalability of every single process, right? It takes great leadership. It takes relentless construction management. We're learning every day. We just can't accept mediocrity and, it'll be tomorrow, and we're going to be off the site at 1 o'clock. And just it's a balance of all these things, but ultimately being organized and having great architect partners, have everything on the plans, have all the questions answered before you walk in the door, use great permit expediters. There's no one thing, right? It's 100 different things that we just need to continue to not rest on. And it's just our general approach to things. Just everything can be a little bit better, so let's strive every single day and everything we do to improve what we do.
Very good.
And Aaron and I were actually talking about this right before today's session. Just listen, having great partners in the business and consistency. Are you creating a building that's a unicorn every single time you go out there to build it, or is it a production set of drawings that you understand that, listen, money is generated on your line, right? Is your line efficient for your team to deliver at a strong pace and with the least amount of steps and things of that nature? If any of you are from McDonald's, you're probably well aware of that. That was a big discussion when we were at McDonald's. But it's finding the right partners, and it's if you're not changing the partners consistently, which is, some people will say, hey, that's a bad thing. You're maybe not getting the best price and things of that nature. However, you set the expectations very well by using the same partners over and over again with GCs, with architects, with civils. And there is a payoff. It may be a little bit different payoff than immediate cost, but there is always a payoff in the end.
Oh, very good. So Daniel, I was wondering, you had mentioned earlier with the real estate and the challenges you have. What are you noticing in the different areas in the marketplace where you're looking to put Swigs that is?
Well, there's good and bad with Swig, right? We're on 1/3 of an acre. I actually came from Dutch Rose with Aaron Harris and Mahon, but we had 1 acre sites. A lot of developers don't want to carve out 1/3 of an acre. So it's either got to be an existing spot that we can just go place, put a building in the spaces available, or it's finding an end cap. We actually are doing quite a bit of end caps and things of that nature. But again, everybody's going after end caps right now. Yeah. It's cheaper to build them. And so the competition's stiff. And listen, we're 900 square foot building. They'd rather lease out 2,000 square feet than 900 square feet. So quite honestly, that is the biggest challenge, is just trying to get the buy-in from the landlords and development community.
Okay, very good. So Aaron, one of the things I wanted to ask you about your Starbird in California, because that's, where it originated. And so many concepts that I've talked to, they're hesitant to develop in California just because of the labor laws, the salary, you're paying your employees, challenges with the real estate. I mean, and you're continuing to develop in the West Coast in California. So can you talk a little bit about that, the advantages to it and what you see?
Sales. It's all about sales. You do 4 to 5 million in sales out of a 2,000 square foot box, you'll figure it out, is really what it comes down to. And as long as we can drive those volumes, those headwinds, and the legal environment, it's brutal. I mean, it's real. Everything you're saying is real. The wages don't bother us. We run extremely low labor costs because we have an incredibly efficient, tech-enabled, highly engineered food production system. And that makes a big, big difference. We process 85% of our orders digitally. We have 0 drive-throughs, right? So we can have a smaller box. We are not dependent on building out acreage. Hey, maybe we'll do 6 million when we have a drive-through. I don't know. We're not opposed to it. We're going to go into different territories that allow for it. But sales cure all ills. Obviously conscious of costs and always that relentless pursuit of excellence every day in everything we do helps us in California. We'll continue to, I'm excited to go to other places where maybe wages aren't $23 an hour, right? And maybe sales will be $1 million less, right? But the economics seem to look good. And building in California is about 40% higher than many other states. So we're excited to expand to other places in the country. They say, if you make it in New York, you make it anywhere. I think if you can make it in a restaurant in California, hopefully we'll make it anywhere too. We'll see, and we look for a lot of partners to help us grow in that venture.
Fantastic. What about, Daniel and Leon, what about you? I mean, what are you seeing with the shifting labor, the requirements in your stores, and, are there states that you're avoiding because of the challenging situations when you're developing?
We're not avoiding any states. And one of our requirements is that we have a franchisee that operates in that state, in that area, so they understand the landscape there. But as it pertains to rising labor costs, I mean, I'm about to give you an unpopular opinion, but it really is the reality of the industry, is that when costs go up, then the price of your product goes up. I mean, that's what's happening at the chain level. So the businesses will find a way to keep their margins healthy. Maybe you'll take a little bit from your margin, but those prices are going to go up to keep the profitability there. And that's what's happening there, right? Obviously, there's a lot you could do to save from a labor perspective. You can introduce things like kiosks and robotic technology and things like that to maybe reduce the amount of time that, let's say, a cashier is going to spend at a cashier station. For us, that strategy doesn't work very well because we're so focused on the guest experience. But when we did put kiosks into the store, although the cashier was there at the cash register ready to take an order, we found that there's a high percentage of that cashier's capacity that we freed up that then they could help, maybe expo or do other things behind the counter when they're, when no one's ordering food from them and everyone's crowded around the kiosk. So that's how we've basically tackled that equation.
Transferable skills that, cross-train them is very helpful.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. We've had this discussion quite a bit because especially as a smaller brand. Here's the thing we're talking about right now. When you're a small brand and you make a bad decision and you've got to live with either real estate or something, you're living with it for 10, 15, 20 years potentially. So we got to make very smart decisions around that. And so we have been kind of weighing going into some of these different states. It's not stopping us, but we are on pause a little bit to kind of see how things shake out. I was actually with a gentleman this last week with another brand, and he said that they pulled the plug in Colorado because of the minimum wage that shot up just recently. Again, it's kind of going back to that. Is it the right place to go? To Leon's point, you're going to just pay more money, right? You're going to offset it by charging more. So maybe it's a push at the end of the day. So it is kind of just weighing that and seeing what direction you want to go.
Okay. So Aaron, kind of what you were talking about is automation, and it's a very common topic in the industry right now, and how brands are seeking to combat pricing and labor and, keep those costs as tight as they can. How do you see your brands embracing that, across the board here with all three of you in the future, and currently and in the future? Because you've talked about your chicken, that you're doing, and the automation and your...
Yeah, we're in terms of, we've designed a new prototype recently, and we're launching that. Torrance will be our first full-blown model, and most of that is what I say behind the counter. Although there's some smaller design elements. We tried to create a design for Starbird that is really timeless. We looked at our restaurant that we opened 8 years ago, and we're like, don't need to change too much. It just feels good. It's
good.
Just clean logo, clean design. Different really like an aesthetic that can have a lot of length in it was our goal, and so far that's proving to be the case. As we're planning for what do we do for CapEx expenditures and the maximum remodels in these franchise agreements, I don't know, we haven't spent any money in our first 8-year-old restaurant, so I don't know what to tell you. We're fortunate that way. In terms of the investment in automation, we have predictive chicken production schedules now that's dynamic, which is amazing. We've got line balancing. We have a dual-sided line that literally is measuring the time and speed of service live.
Yep.
So it really makes things work more smoothly through QSR's technology, working with them. Just a lot of different tech-enabled ways to increase productivity, and the whole time in motion, steps. It's all about, when we've integrated kiosks into our counter. So, and we have our first restaurant without a menu board, and we just launched a week ago, no menu board. Well, the menu board's on the kiosk, and it's standing right in front of the line.
Yeah.
So why don't we give this a try? And
that's interesting.
Seamless, $110,000 in sales without a menu board, week one. Next, let's do it again. Change the plans on the next 2 designs like that. Be nimble, try stuff. Don't be afraid to test stuff. Don't be afraid to fail. If you're not failing at things, you're not trying hard enough. Right? You've got to make mistakes and learn from it and not be so conservative.
Awesome.
Yeah, for us, we're doing a lot around robotics. As a technologist, I'm trying to leverage AI as much as possible, but we have a French fryer robot that we're testing in 2 locations and soon to be expanding to a couple more. And that's an interesting one because it's helped us make the French fries fresher, because you no longer have an employee that's just batch making French fries. So it's making French fries as the need arises for it.
Interesting.
And it's helped us with ticket times, because you no longer, because sometimes you just run out of French fries and you go, oh my God, I ran out of French fries. So you have to wait a minute or 2. But now you always have that French fries area just full and ready for French fries to be served. We've looked at leveraging AI for order accuracy, and that sort of helps you not only get the order right, but it also helps with efficiency, and that's what Aaron was talking about. And we continue to just kind of look at what AI can do. A lot of it is out there, but it's not mature enough for it to make sense for us. Or maybe it is mature enough, but it's too expensive, So everything we do is very ROI centric, right? If it's not going to have a return, we're not going to do it. We'll shelve it. We'll look at it in 6 months or a year.
So you do all that evaluation process up front before you take that step.
That's right. Yeah, we put everything in our company locations. If we put it out in a franchise location, we sponsor that test, just so that the franchisee doesn't have to take the financial hit. And then if it has a positive ROI, then great, right?
Yeah.
We make it part of our standard restaurant package. And if it doesn't, then we'll wait until things get cheaper, because technology does get cheaper over time, and it becomes much better too.
You know how to all by hand.
Yeah, it's all by hand right now. So you know what
you're using KDS though, aren't you? You're using KDS.
Yeah. But it's really interesting. Starting in this business with McDonald's and kind of just progressing through the brands. It's when I got to Dutch Bros, I saw it was probably the least automated at the time, with the strongest customer interaction. And I think that there is something to be said about being less automated in some areas. Maybe it's a little different business model, but there is more interaction when it's less automated. And I think that's something that Dutch Bros or Swig, some of these smaller brands kind of capitalize on. And so I think it's coming. There will be some automation, but I don't know how much it'll transfer to our business.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is, your brands are developing, you're opening more stores, and culture of restaurants is so important, because that's what brings people back, because they love your food, they love the atmosphere, your staff. But sometimes when you're growing fast or, you're developing, how do you keep that culture and, that feeling that, within your store, within your four walls, with your staff? And so it causes that excitement for your guests when they walk in the door.
Yeah, like I said, I think first and foremost, if your employees are unhappy, your customer's going to be unhappy. You need to elevate your employees and make them feel like they're part of the process. We actually had we hold quarterly meetings at Swig, and actually we just presented on my last one this past Friday. But it's just interesting. It's a very small group, and I want to interact with everybody. I want to hear opinions about what's happening. And I'll give you just a really simple, great example. One of the things that when you're in construction, you tend to build a project and you just hand it over to facilities and just forget about it because you're like, hey, I did my part, But
We're done.
and facilities
Cross that off.
hate you, right, the whole time. We actually, I started this years ago, but I've actually looped in the facilities team to say, hey, look, we're building this. What's working? What's not working? What's failing? And so we're keeping accounting of that. And so we're kind of tweaking our build to match the needs of facilities down the way. That, in its own sense, is creating a bit of just collaboration and culture in its own way. But kind of just going back to the other piece is it's important to keep your employees happy. It's probably the easiest thing you can do, and it's not money. It's recognition. I think it's important to always elevate people that are on your team. Because there's nothing better than a C-suite executive walking by and going, hey, Joe, I heard what you did the other day. That's great. That's worth more than money. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very important question, by the way, because historically in my career, I've been involved with growth brands, and I've seen more brands that I've been involved with fail because they've grown too quickly, right? And what's really the essence of a brand is just how you feel, right? Yep. When the brand is kind of at its infancy, like the soul and the culture of the brand that doesn't translate when you're growing at, when you just open up the spigot and just grow the stores at a rapid pace like that. For us at Dave's, I feel like we're doing it right because we have conversations all the time about, from franchisees that want to open their stores this year, and they go, well, why can't I open my restaurant this year? And we go, well, we only have the capacity to open 100 stores so that we can translate the soul and the culture of the brand to your store. So we hold back a lot of development, right? So it's like we have 100 slots a year. If you make it into this year's slots, then great. If you don't, then we're going to push you to next year. And ultimately, that translates to the bottom line for the franchisee, right? Because if we screw up and we don't transfer the essence of the brand to their store, then they're just going to operate like a KFC or however that they feel like they're gonna operate their stores, right? And there's nothing wrong with the way KFC operates or any other brands, but there's something special about every one of these brands and yours as well. And so you want to make sure that when if you're a California brand and you go to New York or any of the flyover states, that it feels like a Dave's that you're walking into. The food tastes good. The experience is, the same as wherever your home state is or your flagship stores. And that's the most important thing about growth is kind of what these guys are talking about is holding back, because I'm sure they can just blast out a bunch of stores and then have a bunch of stores closed because they failed, and you know what I mean, and they just paced it too quickly. So it's very important to address.
When I think about company culture, it's always what's even the definition, and I always think about the definition for me and our team is sort of our culture is what we inspire and what we allow, right? That sort of defines how things are, and if we allow bad behavior, that defines our culture. if we inspire people to do great things, that's part of our culture. So everything kind of comes back to that as we create tangible guidelines for what is our culture and how to keep our culture. Clarity on our values is important. Living our values. We start every Monday morning meeting with talking about people. We share positive moments at the ends of our meetings. We have to ingrain these activities, not just talk about them.
Yep.
And I love watching it happening when I'm not asking for it. Right. That's when I know that things are really moving forward. And not that it all comes from me, but it's something that people will do what is recognized and reinforced. The other thing is really just investing in people. So training, we have a training technology that is well beyond a 16-unit restaurant company. And we will continue to invest in ensuring that our team members, I mean, you're doing 700 transactions a day, right, in a restaurant, and an average check, just below $30. It's a busy place. And you've got to make their lives easy. You've got to support them. Pay is also important. We want to pay our team members better than anyone else where we can. The other thing is ensuring that there's a path of growth, like a really clear, I am here today, I make this much money, my next step is this, the way to get there is accomplishing these things. That's so important for people to know every day. Every single person in the organization should know, whether it's a director in your organization or an incoming line cook or dishwasher, what's the next step for me? Make it clear. What are the benefits of that? And finally, I would just say empowerment. Empowered to just be on the guest side, take care of them. You're not going to be punished ever taking care of a guest. And okay, you comped $150 worth of stuff where a free dessert would have been adequate. That's okay. It's okay. You were on the guest side, and it's a coaching moment. And the guest's going to talk about it, and you're part of our marketing team now. So it all works out that way.
Yeah, great points. Other thing I was going to bring up too, because I've experienced it firsthand, was when you're developing so fast, it's not only that sometimes the culture can get lost, is that you can't get managers trained fast enough and through the cycle, depending on how long your training system is, and that is ingrained in your culture. Because if you have green GMs who've no experience in your brand and you put them in a store and they're struggling, then it's going to be characteristic of the store itself. So very good. So Daniel, you had brought up an item, the shade structure or the canopy on the building, and we want to discuss that a little bit. If you have a drive-through, do you put them in? Where do you put them? How long should they be? Are they really there for the guest? Are they really there for your employee? And we want to make sure the employees are, taken care of, and they feel like the brand's looking out for them. So what are you doing at Swig, and what have you done at Dutch Brothers before? Did you use a canopy system?
So at Dutch Bros, it was actually being implemented right when I was leaving. They were putting an umbrella system in over at Dutch Bros. If you guys have had a chance, I'm sure most of you have, to see Chick-fil-A, they're awesome at it, right? They really protect their employees. And it's in the lower states. It's getting hotter and hotter. We started having issues with Swig out in Arizona, and we said, hey, we got to come up with something. We're not 100% dialed in, but we're almost there. But we're looking for something that's inexpensive, that will have misters, and maybe some fans as well. Again, Chick-fil-A's structure is probably anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000. But again, they're doing AUVs of $6 million. We're doing AUVs much less than that. So obviously, we're trying to find the right path forward. But the good thing is there's a lot of inexpensive options out there that are probably $15,000 to $20,000 that will serve the same purpose. And the difference in temperature underneath those canopies is 15 to 20 degrees. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, especially the hot markets.
Yeah, well, very good. And maybe that might be a question for later. We can, when we go to the Q&A, if people have any comments on that, that'd be great. And I'm just curious what each brand is really doing to stimulate the buzz and the excitement about your brand, and whether it's commercials or you've got somebody who's a musician or somebody who's standing up for the brand and talking about it, and what are you focusing on to differentiate yourself in the marketplace of where your business is? You want to start, Aaron?
Sure. We have an amazing marketing team. We have amazing teams in our company. We have great tech team, great marketing, HR. I feel so grateful. That's all I can say every day.
Good.
Thank you, all the people who work at Starbird. But on the marketing side, we've invested a lot in creating our own content. So we create all our own social content. Everybody should go on TikTok, Starbird Chicken, check out our stuff. Austin does an amazing job, or on Instagram. We love the energy that it creates for our brand. It doesn't only create energy for our consumers, but our team. Our team feels excited and proud to be part of a brand that's engaged in social media in a fun and exciting way. We love to do, over-the-top grand openings, right? We reach out and we get upwards of 5,000 people signed up to our app through a lot of outreach, primarily digital advertisements, just getting people fired up about Starbird coming to town. And we do these VIP events, and we get food in people's mouths, right? So every day we are just adding, whatever, 30 an hour for the first 30 days of these VIPs, and just getting food in people's mouths, and because the food speaks for itself, right? And so
I had it in the airport. It was very good.
Thanks. Our team's excited that you had a good experience. And that's food in people's mouths. As I'm a fine dining chef originally, and so it's all about the food, right? And we work hard on guest experience. Our training team is up the game there. But good social outreach, get food in people's mouths. Catering gets food in people's mouths who may have not known about you. I was at Levi's Stadium yesterday, and we're in the United Club now, and we have our Starbird, bright yellow tender containers and fry things. Some everywhere, all over the stands, just like Starbird stuff.
That's awesome.
Which was just awesome. The game was a disaster. I don't know if you followed that.
Heard it was really hot too.
It was fortunately on the shady side. It was hot, yeah. But all those are kind of things, good branding, good marketing, and making people happy.
Very good.
On our side, we're really fortunate, right? Because our brand was born on social media, right? When our founders were literally in a parking lot, making food. They activated on social media. So a lot of our stuff.
Story.
Yeah. They started the brand with $900.
Wow.
And look at it now. It's become a legitimately big company, and the founders are definitely wowed by it, but sometimes it just kind of wows me that something can be born in a parking lot and then become a big brand. But so social media is big. User-generated content is really big for us. We have so much of it that we just repost some of the user postings, and that gets people even more engaged. It just, the brand feels authentic that way, and our founders are very careful about the authenticity piece, because that's how they grew the brand, so they want to continue that. We tried doing some commercials more with connected TV. Those commercials did okay. And then sort of our next wave of advertisement was just taking a bunch of user-generated content and making a commercial out of that, and that just completely blew up. And it was
great.
So good for sales, and it just, people were loved the commercial. So that's our entire strategy, is just take user-generated content and turn it into an ad. So that's what we're doing.
Very cool.
I think we're at a very unique time in history right now, and you've heard it just about the social media. You can compete as a brand new business with McDonald's on social media. You don't need to spend millions of dollars on an advertising budget. And so I think that has opened up a lot for your brands. Obviously, it's opened up a lot for us as well. There are things on the branding side you can do, and you heard it earlier when the gentleman was talking about small sliders. He goes, our building is unique. You drive down, that is a branding element that when you see that building, you're going to know what it is once the recognition hits, right? McDonald's has been the same for many, many years. We're trying to accomplish the same thing at Swig right now. We're trying to say, hey, how can we make our building so unique that when you're driving down the road and you see it, you know that is a Swig. Yeah, it's iconic. Exactly. But I think going back to the social media piece, that is what is driving customers to our shops. And again, I think if people are adverse to that, get on board, because it's not going away, because it's
only going to increase.
It's only going to increase. It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the apps that you are using in your brands and that, the ordering. And Aaron, you brought up, I thought it was a pretty phenomenal percentage of your business that's, 85% is ordered through your app. I mean, that's great. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about, your technology and how you created the app and each can have their turn. But I think that's a really interesting story.
Yeah, just for clarification, say 85% isn't through the app itself, it's through all of our digital channels combined. Only 15%
It sounded good.
is,
Yeah.
our head of technology would be like, that's right, 85%, let's go.
Nod your head and say yes.
Right here. It grows every year, but it's, we're growing all channels. I mean, our way of thinking about ordering in just digital channels and technology is we want to meet the guest where they want to be met, right? So our original hypothesis at Starbird, and we just said, okay, what if we like re-scripted fast food? How do we turn fast food on its head? How do we change the food, the ingredients, the design, the convenience? And we started day one with an app. We opened a restaurant, we had an app day one, 2016. And not only do we have an app, but our idea was drive-thru's kind of broken. You can't use digital technology well. At least 8 years ago, you could not. Today, it's getting better and better. If you order ahead, now you wait in a big line, right? That doesn't make sense, right? That defeats the purpose. Maybe we can, order ahead, pull up into a spot. We had numbered spots in the first original thing and said, I'm here. You touch, I'm here. They get a notice in the restaurant. They walk out. It's a hypothesis, right? If you're not trying stuff, you're failing, right? So needless to say, that worked. It also didn't matter that much. Starbucks taught the consumer to order ahead, pull up, as long as there's a spot. Mostly people can get out of their car. Sure, if you have kids in the back or it's 10 below zero, California, we're a little blind to those things. But generally speaking, 97% of people, this was not making their life better, right? Was making their life better was they can order ahead, they could pull up as long as there's a space to pull into, walk in the door, grab a bag and go, right? The next better thing that's evolved is really, don't go out of your car, order ahead, pull up the window, drive by, like not even stopping, grab the bag, keep going. I'd love to get to that 10-second transaction, right? But the combination of technology we use is kiosks in our restaurants, our app, mobile. We have a lot of robust catering partners that are all digital based. We use Olo on the back end today. We use PAR and Brink is the direction we're headed there, with QSR running to do a lot of the automations. And Thanks is our loyalty provider today. Just not to plug anyone, these are our partners. They're who we work with. We appreciate them. We challenge them every day. They challenge us. Yeah. It's on the Q3 update. We've all heard that one. It's like, well, that one, it's already Q4. So how's that playing out for you? So, we have to hold them accountable. We try and be kind along the way. Don't always succeed, but do our best to manage those partner relationships as best we can.
You hear that, Leon? You got some
Man,
shoes to fill.
I got to go talk to his IT guy. He's doing 85% of the business.
That's right.
Well, for us, 40% of our business is digital. And so I'd say, as part of total business, we probably do 10%, and the rest of it is third party. But about a year and a half ago, we launched our first mobile app. And it was just a quick and dirty mobile app just to have something out there because our guests were asking for it. And we recently, about a month ago, launched a more, it's not really a custom app, but it's more of a branded app that has some of the pain points removed, right? And so my goal as a technologist is to make things more convenient for the consumer, right? So now that we have a mobile app, we're looking at quoting pickup times dynamically, right? And we just put in a system that predicts that within 2 minutes of the order ready time. So that's a big deal. Once we get that stabilized, we're gonna also track the customer journey over to the restaurant, because if you imagine, we serve up the quote time. We tell them, well, your order is gonna be ready at 10:10. But some people show up early, some people show up late. So we also want to track their journey over so that if they're going to show up early, we can prioritize the order and get that order done quicker. If they're running late, we'll deprioritize it so that, because it's fried food, right? And if it sits in those clamshell containers, it sweats and it gets soggy, and it's not a good guest experience, right? Although they were late to the game, you still have to serve good food. They expect it, right? And we want to do that. So we're doing that. We do kiosks. We have pickup windows out so that, at some restaurants, so that if you're picking up your order, you don't have to go inside the restaurant. You kind of go to the side of the restaurant, kind of like a drive-through that you walk up to. We have some restaurants in Detroit that have a pickup window, so it's like a drive-through with no squawk box. So you order your food and then just drive up, pick it up. So that might be your 10-second experience. So what we're going to do in this next year or so, and you might want to look at that with QSR automation, is we're putting up order ready boards, order status boards that show you if your food's in process or if it's ready. And we found that not only helps the guest in not interrupting the expo person, but if you've ever worked at a restaurant or just observed the third-party delivery drivers, they don't care what you're doing. If you're helping a guest or anything, they just come in and shove the phone in your face. So it stops them from shoving the phone in your face, because now they come and just stand in front of the screen and they're just frozen until they see their status change to ready, and then they run up and do the phone shoving. But at least it's purposeful now. So we're always looking for things to make the guest pickup experience or the ordering experience much easier. We're also looking at voice AI. I know SoundHound is here. Hello. So we're talking to them and other companies about what do we do with voice AI and how do we innovate around voice AI, because where voice AI is. What's that?
So for order placing? Or
For order placing. So there's a really good use case for drive-through, right? You go up to the drive-through and then voice AI kind of puts your order together and you see it on the screen and all is beautiful. But why don't we have that into mobile apps, right? So a lot of times you're either driving from point A to point B, or in our case, our demographic is much younger. They're playing a video game and they don't want to pause to place an order. So why not build in voice AI into the app? Our demographic I love our demographic because they've never challenged. I've never been challenged so much in my life, because the younger generation that's buying our food was born with an iPad in their hands, and they're so savvy with technology, and they're so snarky too. So it's like, so it's funny. I get a lot of emails with F words and how I ruined their mobile app. I just responded to one yesterday. You ruined my mobile app experience. The last one was so beautiful, and this one sucks. So it's like, so it's fun. It makes the job fun, and definitely keeps us on our.
Oh, yeah, positive experience of that. That's funny. So going further with wins or failures, you have experienced with your brands. What is something that has stood out to each of you when you takeaways that you've learned from that has changed the directive or decisions in your brands?
The worst business decision that has impacted me in my life a couple times is a bad real estate decision by far. One bad real estate decision can take all of the energy trying to fix some dog restaurant, or it can take away the profits of 5 really good ones. Yeah, we're extremely diligent and actually a little slow to grow because we're not going to pay $280,000 a year rent in some B location in Orange County, and there are unfortunately too many people who are, right? That just show up and we'll run 18% occupancy on 1.8 million. Like, no, you're not gonna survive doing that, right? And I think that while we want to grow faster sometimes, that learning has been deeply ingrained.
Good.
I'm going to echo what Aaron said a couple of times during this session, is that you can't be afraid to fail, right? And you have to try things, because without trying them, you don't know if it's going to work. So one, to kind of weave in technology into this. So about a year, excuse me, about a year and a half ago, we wanted to, we were actually first, but we wanted to do order accuracy through AI, the same system that Chipotle uses. I think they just visited one of our stores and they said, we need that. And all the and it works for Chipotle, right? If you think about Chipotle, it's a scoop and serve concept, right? So if you hang a camera on top of the digital line with them, the first order that comes in is the first order that gets processed. So it's easy to find out if the person wanted whatever, grilled peppers, and you didn't put it in there, right? But we used a similar system to, well, in the beginning, the scope was really huge, right? We wanted to make sure that the tenders were spiced correctly. We wanted to make sure that if you didn't want pickles, that we didn't put pickles on there, and we got the upgraded sides correctly, and portioning and all that stuff. And what we quickly found out was that something as simple as changing the color of the container. So we use these black styrofoam containers, right? And one day, PFG ran out of our black styrofoam containers, so we got white styrofoam containers. And suddenly the system blew up because it couldn't tell the difference between a black styrofoam container and an identical white one. So so we experienced some issues there. And with us, because we're spicing tenders, sometimes you take care of order number 3 because you have that tender that's spice up there, and you put it on order number 3 and process it. And the AI system it was good at kind of playing the shuffle game as long as it was within its view. But for some reason, if it tripped up, it's not like a human where it goes, okay, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna regroup, and then I'm gonna start over again. It completely annihilates your entire day. So every order ends up being incorrect. So you go, well, wait a minute, why do I have this system put in that's gonna help me with order accuracy? And it's causing chaos and confusion. So that's one big failure that we had. I mean, obviously we put that in like 3 or 4 stores, and it was an expensive system. And but we decided we see the value, right? So we decided to shelf that system until the technology matures before we roll it out. And so so that's one of the very many. I mean, we have failures all the time, right? And that's why we test things in a small group of stores, and then if it fails, great. We just move on, and if it's a success story, then we obviously expand the test and then eventually roll it out everywhere. And that's essentially.
And I think that's one thing all of you have commented on, that you have your base test stores and you keep that mix small so that you can put stuff in there, you can try it, you can work through all the kinks before you roll it out. And I always thought that was really key. So. Yeah. Oh, do you want?
No, I don't know if you want Q&A.
We're going to wrap up, and if there's any Q&A out there, anybody has any questions that they want to ask the group here regarding what we talked about, or challenges you have at your in your restaurants that they could help with or comment on?
Bet I want to heckle you right now, Dan. Really, no idea. Actually, for all 3 of you. All of you are doing second generation space. Aaron, I go to your place in Hermosa quite a bit. You guys did a really good job with that one. What are your thoughts? And you mentioned a new prototype, and Dan, I know you guys have done a few conversions, and like the gas station in Phoenix and whatnot. What are your guys' thoughts on reuse of an existing space, especially where you guys are doing the drive-through or pickup window? And then, Leon, what kind of technology challenges are you seeing with an older building that was built in the 70s and the 80s? And, are there limitations that you're seeing? So it's kind of a question for all 3 of you. And make fun of Dan. Oh.
Yeah. So Aaron and I worked together at Dutch Bros for several years. I've known him forever. He's a good friend. And he's going to throw something at me when I say this. But conversions are never easier. Everybody will tell you, oh my gosh, the building's existing. You just go in there and you throw your equipment in and you open up the doors and you get going. Listen, you're changing floor sinks around, you're opening up walls, you're moving walls, you're making sure. I'll give you a good example. If we're going in as a Swig into an old burger shop, right? There's probably grease in all the HVAC ducts. The air conditioning needs to be replaced. The sewer lines need to be jettisoned. I mean, they are a lot harder to do, but it doesn't steer you away from it. If you do it the right way and you can manage to the build appropriately, you'll get to where you need to be.
Yeah, I mean, for us, second gen is interesting. So what we do with second gen space is that we'll take it over, and then obviously the most expensive part about building restaurants is the hood and and the stainless, right? Whatever it is, it's stained. So we'll keep whatever makes sense, right? And then whatever doesn't make sense, we'll rip it out. So we've gone into second gen spaces where we go, well, the hood is just in the absolute wrong spot. So how can we redesign this thing so that it makes sense? And if it doesn't, then we'll rip it out. But we typically try really hard to keep what's there that's expensive, and that's how we save on the second gen space. So, but when it comes down to wiring, I rip it all out because I don't know what has been in the walls. So rip it all out and redo it. And the franchisee ends up saving a ton of money too. But what we don't want to do is have a grand opening day and then have, use old wiring and then suddenly everything goes down because, you wanted to save 10 grand on not rewiring the place. So, so it does save us a ton of money to do second gen spaces. But as far as the dining room is concerned, I mean, we don't remove walls or anything like that, but that just gets completely redone because that's the guest-facing part of the restaurant. I'm sure you guys do the same thing. So there's no compromises there, but in the kitchen, we'll make it work.
Second gen is the most expensive and least expensive conversions that we have in our system today. Hermosa being our most expensive. The challenge with first gen in California is, our two latest restaurants we opened, well, two of the three, one was both mixed-use projects, right? One's a 6-story building, and well, they've never really done a restaurant before, and did the duct work, is it right? And did they really get all the clean outs on every floor right? And there's a lot of surprises on those. Whereas our Pleasanton restaurant, new build, single level, pretty straightforward. Those are pretty easy. They're the easiest to do. But we've got a restaurant we're opening in Cupertino here in the Bay, and it'll be our least expensive restaurant. And we're trying to use as much as we can. We're using hoods, we're using restrooms, we're using...
What was it before?
It was a counter burger. And it's a big spot. It's bigger than any of our other restaurants, and it'll be our least expensive, in theory, conversion. As of today, as of this moment in time,
knock on wood,
50% of the way through the project, we are on budget and on time. Miraculously, we haven't done that in a while. I wish I could say the same for our others. But we like second-gen spaces. I would never depend on being able to reuse anything other than ADA restrooms that you've accurately measured, and walk-ins traditionally can be reused for the most part, right? And then you get to the hoods, and that's sort of the next maybe.
I was going to add real quick, 8 years and under is kind of the sweet spot when you're converting a second gen. 8 to about 15, it's a hit and miss. Anything over 15, got the whole thing down to the studs, start all over. So.
Some people don't want to hear that, but that's the best thing to do.
That's the truth,
Yeah, don't try to reuse a HVAC unit that's 15 years old or 20.
Yeah.
Doesn't last very long.
Question. I have Nick Voynich, Little Greek. We've had to raise our prices. We're mostly Florida and Texas, 52 restaurants. We've raised prices. Our sales, for the first time in 13 years, we're seeing our comps kind of drifting negative. And the question would be, obviously all three brands are pretty hot concepts. So you have a lot of wind at your back. But what is your thoughts on just damn the torpedoes, keep cranking out the growth? Or do you guys ever strategically, macro-wise, pull back and let's sit tight for a little bit? Or what are the thoughts on, as far as from a development standpoint, when you see economic conditions kind of starting to get a little wobbly, how are you guys playing that side?
You guys want me?
Okay.
So as it pertains to pricing and comps, sometimes sales are up, sometimes sales are down. But what we do is we look at transactions, which equates to traffic, and sales volumes against the industry, right? Against the industry, against our competitors. And if everyone's trending down and we're trending down, then it's the market, right? But if things are going in the opposite direction, then obviously we just buckle down and figure out what it is that's causing that, right? But as far as slowing down growth, we haven't done that yet. We tend to, we're still going into new areas, right? So And we space our restaurants far apart from each other so that when we do drop in a restaurant, it's a new experience. We're picking up a new demographic or a new set of customers. So for us, we haven't gotten to the point where we're dropping in a store between two existing stores, and then we go, well, should we really do that? Because sales are down X%, and so, you know, is it going to really be profitable? We haven't gotten there yet. I'm sure we'll get there at some point, though.
That is all we have time for. Jill, Dan, Leon, and Aaron, thank you so much.